Welcome back, everyone, to Miles and Mindset, Tour de France Femmes edition. This is stage 2 with me, Rebecca Rush, and Brent Bookwalter, former professional endurance athletes with 50 years combined experience racing at the elite level. And now we've come together to share our insights on athlete performance mindset. Brent with a master's in sports psychology, and me with a lot less formal training, but a ton of interest in the power of the mind. So Miles and Mindset is our collaboration on mental performance training for athletes of all levels. And this particular series is through the lens of the biggest cycling event in the world, the Tour de France Femmes, avec Zwift. And each day we'll share some of the challenges these athletes are facing and the mental strategies that they're using to perform at their best on the biggest stage in cycling. So stage 1, we talked about the pressure of an event of this scale and the first day race jitters and crashes and excitement and how to manage that. And we talked about the intuition and confidence to know when to take a risk, when to seize a moment, and when to be patient and wait. So if you missed that stage 1, you can find that on both of our YouTube channels. And for today, for stage 2, we're really going to dive into self-talk, which is that ever-present voice in our heads that can be either our biggest cheerleader or our biggest enemy. And really, your self-talk is one of the holy grails of performance, and how you manage the conversation in your head for your benefit and not for your detriment. So we're really going to talk about what we're saying to ourselves. And we had the chance to poll some of the athletes from the team, Saint Michel Preference Aubervilliers 93, which is the team that we're working with, and our rider out there, Wreszin. And we asked them to answer that question. What are you saying to yourself when you're out there riding, you're at the start line, when there's hard moments in the race? So we're really going to get into self-talk today. So Brent, what do you think when I say self-talk? When we decided on this topic for today, what was the first thing that came to mind?
Yeah, Rebecca, I think going back to even the coverage I was doing with the men's Tour de France last month, this was a topic, mental performance topic that I had written down that I wanted to cover and connect to the race the men's were doing. I never actually got around to it because there was so much other interesting connects and talks to have. And I think as we were talking yesterday, this was something that came to mind from a curiosity perspective as a fan, but also as a chance to educate and connect Caroline and her team to the race and to this chance to learn. And for me, self-talk, what's interesting about it is it's always there. We're always having some sort of dialogue, conversation, thoughts with ourselves. So we're very rarely, if ever, absent of it. And that said, I think when I think back on my career, it took me a long time before I actually realized that, understood it, and then proactively, productively worked on it in a strengths-based way. Like many aspects of our mind and mental performance, we spend so much time working on our bodies, and we are out there on the bikes, we're out there in the races, and there's this dialogue that we have with ourselves. So why not spend some time understanding it, investing in it, and making it work for us? And this was an area of my master's degree program that I really enjoyed digging into some of this research and some of these topics because it was so easily relatable to those experiences I had. When we think about the more traditional, old school self-talk literature and studies, it's often divided into 2 types and categories. So there's the system 1 self-talk. This is the automatic, sort of like ever-present, just instinctual things that we say to ourselves, which is sometimes when we're having a hard time, it's like, oh, I'm getting crushed out here, or this isn't going well, or my legs hurt so bad. Or when something goes really well, it's easy to automatically be like, oh, well, that was fun. And that's system 1, this automatic stuff. It's sort of like these, sort of like the devil and the angel that just like pop up without any control and just start speaking to us. And then the system 2 is where the self-talk, where we're actually doing the work. That is the actual deliberate, self-talk dialogue that we have. We're investing energy and thought and design into it and working to improve ourselves. So we generally work on our system 2, which eventually starts to alter that system 1. And that's what we need to happen, because in the Tour de France, any bike race, anyone that knows when they push themselves, the talk and like, I'm going to try hard is kind of cheap. When the going gets really tough, whatever the automatic sort of underwriting default mode of the computer and the self-talk is, that's going to come out. So that's why it's so important to prepare. And some of that happens just sort of naturally, I think. As an endurance athlete, we train hours and hours and hours and hours. So we do get some familiarity and some reps just naturally without deliberate practice on self-talk, where we will improve it. But the next step is actually understanding what our default self-talk is, rephrasing it, writing it, using journaling, using friends, peers, coaches, and picking it apart,
Yeah.
re-engineering it to make it really work for ourselves.
Okay, this is really cool. This is going to be a good episode. I love that the system one is automatic, and everyone's having that conversation, like you said. System two, it happens through reps, which I love what you said. So you can get better just through experience, but you'll get even better if there's actually focused intention around, just like your training. You would get better if you rode your bike 20 hours every week. You'll get even better if you have a coach and you do specific training and periodized training. You'll get better faster. So
That's
this
right.
is kind of the same concept working in that system too. There is a real fallacy too that that pro athletes or people who win all the time don't have any negative self-talk, and like they don't have that system one. But as you're saying, it's automatic. It comes up at the worst possible time. And we recognize it and note it and just be like, okay, I'm going to choose to take a different behavioral approach. I'm going to have some different language. I have a cool example that was actually really interesting from some of my 24-hour racing, and that style of racing was you start at noon on one day, and you go all through the night and finish on noon the next day, and you do about a 15 or 20 mile lap course, and you go around for 24 hours. And every time I'd pre-ride the course, I wasn't a very good technical mountain biker when I started doing this racing. In fact, I was terrible. And I'd pre-ride the course, do the sections, and ride with my husband, who was a really good technical rider, and just be like, I suck. I can't ride this section. I can't do it. What am I even doing here? And I'd always have like a terrible pre-ride. And then usually in the middle of the night, which I loved night riding, and I loved it a lot because other people hated it. So this was part of my strategy of being like, oh, good. People hate riding at night. I like riding at night. And so I would leverage that because I thought it was really interesting. But the really thing about self-talk is that all of a sudden during the middle of the night, when I couldn't see all the terrain around me, I could only see what was right in front of me. All of a sudden I'd be riding these sections that I'd talked myself out of in the pre-ride. And it's literally because it was dark and I could only see what was in my headlamp. And I was quite tired 12 hours in. And so all of a sudden I couldn't fight myself anymore. And so there was a really interesting fatigue and then the blinders sort of put on in some ways that allowed me to ride something that I'd talked myself out of just 12 hours earlier. Does that
I love it.
Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yes. No, I love it. Yeah. The riding at night, it dulls down so much other feedback and inputs and essentially distraction too, not just externally and physically, but also internally. So what a great avenue to shortcut and short circuit some of that.
Let's talk about distraction. I kind of called it focused distraction sometimes because we polled some of the athletes, like I said. And Allison Jackson in particular, she said, and this is a strategy I use too, she said sometimes she just counts.
So what do I say to keep myself in the game? Sometimes I just count to 8 like a dancer. 5, 6, 7, 8. But actually, yeah, you just have to. Pain continues, but if you can reset your brain somehow to a new workload of pain. If I feel really good, I can count to 10. Oh, you know what else? When I see Caroline and then I'm like, I will never let her beat me, and then I'm going, and then that usually gets me quite far.
she's really funny. If you haven't followed her, she's so hilarious. But she said she counts like a dancer, like 5, 6, 7, 8. And then she said if she's really feeling good, she can make it all the way to 10.
9, 10.
But so she just counts. Yeah. And so she counts to it. It's like focused distraction. She's staying focused, but she's not sitting there thinking about all the pain in her legs, how hard this is. So it's not like she's distracted and floating off, not even thinking about the bike race, but she's giving her mind something to do that keeps her in the moment, but isn't focusing on the negative. What
Yeah.
do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good example of this. Sometimes people will say like, I don't want to overthink or I don't want to think too much. And I would pull that back to, well, the thinking is okay, but it needs to be about the right thing at the right time, every time, or as much of the time as possible. And there's absolutely times in these races where what serves you is just getting some distance from the physical experience. The counts are great because it's movement. It's movement forward. It can also be rhythmic. The act of moving through a number sequence, you're also moving through the meters, the kilometers. So it's helping break the entire process down into these very small parts, and that serves you. And I think, yeah, the counting can be. It's as much of a sort of like cognitive reframing strategy as it is self-talk. That said, it is dialogue we're having with ourselves. So self-talk in a formal sense of like the study is often referred to as instructional or motivational. We say it needs to be also, it's like coaching yourself. But in this case, this example of the 5, 6, 7, 8, if when you're absent of a coach and the dialogue and the feedback that would help you, just go back to the rhythm, just go back to your pedal stroke, just going back to your breath. That ability to coach yourself to the simplicity of moving through the numbers, whether it's breaths or pedal strokes or numbers or a beat, that is still constructive, positive coaching. And I would say that's like, essentially it's instructional. If we had to like, formally sort of put the counting into one bucket, it's like distilling down technique and processing and even the race to these very small chunks, which that process focus serves us well, getting away from what will happen, what might happen, and what we're doing right now. That's going through the numbers, the pedal strokes, the kilometers, and the meters on the road.
Yeah, and I guess it isn't really self-talk, but it's allowing you not to have negative self-talk. Like it's taking the place of, perhaps sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, this hill is really big. I'm hurting,
Yes.
I'm dying, I'm really hot."
Yes.
So it's
Yeah,
more like
absolutely.
a replacement thing.
Yeah, and it's still, I think, in a lot of ways, like self-talk in the moment, especially if we're talking about using in a bike race, it is aiming of attention and it is focus, right? So this again goes back to the fundamental ability of mindfulness that we have to be aware, we have to be accepting of the awareness, and then where do we go? What do we do with that aiming of attention? Where do we aim it? Well, in this case, it's productive to go back to the counting, go back to the numbers, go back to this form of breaking it down, instructional self-talk. So, and that can be, the aiming of attention doesn't only fit into self-talk. There's lots of ways we can aim our attention, but our ability to use self-talk beneficially, productively, and effectively for us in a competition is also going to be tied to that ability to actually be aiming our attention and recognizing, like, I need some coaching now. I need some coaching from myself, as simple as counting the beats, or it could also be focusing on my technique, my pedal stroke, how I'm setting up for the corner, or it could be motivational and encouraging. And those, you're ultimately aiming your attention and your resources, that your ability to coach yourself, that is a resource that you have, and you're recognizing the moment where that brings value and is productive and effective.
You kind of touched on something. Alicia said another thing, that she doesn't want to think too much. And that's kind of, she said at the start, she's really thinking of the sections of the race. She's broken it into chunks. She's kind of reminding herself at the start line of like the key points of the course of the day that she's studied. So she's reminding herself that of the chunks of the race. But then at the same time, she said she also really tries not to think too much and just feel. So what's she doing
Yeah, the letting it happen. I think in terms of before the race, setting up for that, and again, where is she aiming her attention? She's aiming it on breaking it down. She's aiming it on the intel she has, the knowledge she has, the insight they have, the race plan. I think the sort of like next level potential application of self-talk there is adding like what she can do or how it looks and having that backed by credibility. So not just saying like, I'm going to enter this important corner in the top 10 because it's like wishful, dreamy thinking, but actually spending the time to
Mm,
understand like, I will arrive in position here, or you will realize this position. You will execute positioning into this corner that is important because you've had the historic evidence. You also have displayed the skills to bring you there. So I think and she's probably doing some level of this without even realizing it. But
yeah.
that's sort of like the next level of this is as we coach ourselves, not just having it be pie in the sky, sort of like fake it till you make it stuff, but actually honed in
Yeah.
credible intel evidence that you have from your history. Why can you score? Why can you get position? Why can you make the breakaway? Well, it's because you've trained this way. You executed in this other race before. You've studied the exact topography, and I have the knowledge to do it. And pulling all that together in these concise statements that ultimately have to be practiced and prepared beforehand, because that's not going to be into that system one just happen accidentally once you're out there on the road coaching yourself. It needs to be prepared.
I love that you said that because when I was first, when I was trying to work on getting better at technical mountain biking, um, I'd have people tell me all this time, like, "Oh, just tell yourself you're awesome. Tell yourself you got this." But I didn't believe it, and I knew I was scared of the technical riding, and so I had to like that didn't work at all for me to just be like, "You're awesome. You got this." Because then in the back of my head, I'm going, yeah, you're really not that good of a technical rider. You've never ridden this
Mm,
before. Da, da, da. And so I was in that system one. And the example I gave about riding in the dark, when I finally got out of my way, I could
hmm
ride some of these sections. But I couldn't just tell myself, you're awesome, because I didn't believe it because I
You
didn't
didn't
have the
believe it. It
time
wasn't
or
credible.
it wasn't credible. And
Yeah.
so I had to be like, first, I had to be like, well, I can get off and run these sections just as fast as
Yes.
I can ride them, and I'll be.
Right.
And so I would
Yes.
run a lot of technical sections
Yes.
and I'd be just as fast and I'd complete the race. And so I had to do that first of like, I can't lie to myself, but
hmm
I could say, well, you can get through it just as fast here. And then you're going to
Yeah.
haul ass on flat section to make up
hmm
any time. I
Yes.
had to sort of deal with myself because I didn't want to lie to myself basically.
Spot on. That's right. Yes. The fake it till you make it doesn't work. There has to be some credibility there, and there has to be some history there. But it really, why it's helpful to sort of like sit down with a notebook or a journal or have this conversation is because, as you just described with the example of the technical ride-in, you can get to the end point you want, and in terms of how you're moving through that, just reframing how you're speaking to yourself. So in your case, this was about innovating, adapting, persevering. Like it was about being creative with forward movement. It was I don't like I move forward at all costs. Like that's some self-talk. And that was really authentic to you as like a endurance athlete of multi-sport discipline. You could you get off your bike and you could move with the best of any of those competitors, I'm sure. So that's very authentic, very credible. So that doesn't always come naturally. And that's why it's important to sort of peel back the layers and sort of re-engineer this, deconstruct the potentially negative statement or anxiety inducing statement and create something positive and productive, instructional, motivational that is authentic based on what we're bringing.
So how does somebody, let's take the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, somebody's in the stage, it's really hot, it's really hard, they're really struggling, they're at the back of the pack, they're getting dropped. How do you reframe when things really aren't going well and like you can't lie to yourself, you're having a really hard time? What do you do in those situations? What were some of the things that you would pull?
everyone's a little different. There's a lot of individuality here. The instructional self-talk is often a little more conducive for like technical, strategic, tactical sort of situations when you're breaking it down and kind of figuring it out. And then for me, the motivational was a little more effective in these like long climbs, suffering off the back, like just sort of like this soul crushing moment, the real suffering when you may be leaving the tour because if you can't get back to the group, you're going to miss time cut. That is some suffering when you're risking losing everything. And for me, that's where the motivation comes in, and sort of the kind of like the common one that is, all over t-shirts and podcasts and everywhere, like I can do hard things. It's actually quite applicable if it's connected to actual evidence and credibility, again, like we said. So if you tell yourself I can do hard things, and it ideally in a more individualized, speak to yourself way. So maybe it's like I'm a total badass, or I'm a rock star, or like I can suffer like nobody's business, or I'm the for you, you're the queen of pain. Like what an awesome one. Ahead of time though, for that to work, you have to actually connect this. Like, why is that to be true? Why is there power and motivation from that self-coaching? Well, think of all the times in your sport career where you did master pain. You were the queen of pain. And that isn't just you delusionally saying like, tough up, Gipper, like, you can do hard things. It's like, no, it's backed by all of the training, the competitions, the crux moments that you persevered for and found a way to master that relationship with pain that came from that.
So going back to your history, going back to your own credibility of things you've done in your past, as kind of giving yourself proof of concept of like, come on, motivate yourself. You said there's two types of self-talk. I think it's really interesting where there's instructional and motivational, and you kind of can pull on both those levers in both situations. And yeah, one of the motivational things I would use also, like being at the back of a race or wanting to quit. There's many times in an endurance event where you want to just quit and make the pain stop. And I would cast and be like, well, what story do I want to say to my mom and my family and my teammates? Like, if I actually quit, what am I going to say to them? So I sort of take it outside of myself instead of self-pity in the moment. I'd be like, what am I going to say to my team? I mean, I have a really good example. The only race I've quit in my life was high school junior year cross country running. And I stepped off the course and quit. And it was the regional meet. We were trying to qualify for state. I was the top runner and I was like running poorly. I wasn't winning. And I literally stepped off the course because I was having a bad day and jeopardized us going to the state meet. And I was so ashamed when my teammates and my coach and my mom all came up and were like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I was fine. I just mentally had failed. And I've never forgotten that. I was 15 years old, and that I'm like, I don't quit because of almost the shame of like telling my friends and family, like, oh, I just stopped.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I do try to, sometimes I'm really at a place, I'm like, what story do I want to write? Like, I finished last, but I finished. And I think a lot of these athletes are making the cutoffs. They've never been in a race this big in their life. 9 days, there's more than half the field that will be struggling to finish. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think when I think of my experiences in the Tour de France, the percentage of people that are in doubt of finishing it's a majority. It's on any given day. There's lots of grim suffering that's happening out there, and I think the more experience you get, the more you realize and have some perspective on. Once you make it to a certain point, the level you have will get you through, but that doesn't mean it's pretty, and it doesn't mean it's a formality and a foregone conclusion. The other thing that jumps into my mind that with your example there, also, I think it's really applicable for this self-coaching or self-talk, if we're going to call it, is that it's values aligned and understanding from the onset, like what we're doing here. Like, why are you going to the start line of a particular race? that adds a backing to how we're going to coach ourselves and what we're going to say as well. Is it truly to only get the result? In your case, that in the cross country running example, there was probably a lot of the why that was very much fixated and attached only to the result. So once the result was gone, there was no reason to be there. There was no value in being there. But if we can add some depth of why away from just the outcome and the process and the personal growth and the evolution and the exploration of self, then all of a sudden there's a lot more reason to keep going. And I think it's a real important question for an athletes to ask themselves before any competition. Like, what am I going here for? Am I actually going in with a commitment to finish no matter what? Or is it to work for a teammate? Or is it to only get the result myself? Is it to learn about myself, demonstrate talent, skills? What is it? And then that helps prop up some of this motivation and those real tough, suffering, pain-filled moments as well.
I love that. And I mean, value, we can't talk enough about how important knowing why you're there and knowing your values. And when it is that deep, dark moment of suffering, being able to draw those back up and remind yourself that voice of like, oh yeah, I dreamt of being at the Tour de France Femmes. I am here riding my bike,
It's a privilege, right? Yeah.
It's almost pulling away from just being super internal to actually kind of, like Caroline said at the finish line, she had a hard first day. And she said her favorite part was the finish line and all the people that were lining the last 3K. And she was able to pull her head up and be like, whoa, this is so cool. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. That kind of relates to Heidi Franz when we pulled her. What is her self-talk?
So actually, that was interesting yesterday because I was feeling like, okay, I need to tell myself, come on, Heidi, it's the Tour de France. Like, you got to give it everything. But I actually was telling myself that in the race yesterday, and it was getting me more stressed out. So I was like, no, we're just in like any other bike race. There's just a lot more people on the side of the road. I can't get myself hyped up on the race because it's the Tour. That actually stresses me out more. I need to just think of it like any other race.
She was basically saying, Heidi, it's a Tour de France Femme. Come on, give it your all. Give it your all. This is the big stage. And she was actually like seeing heart rate go up. She was feeling it in her body, and she was creating more stress for herself by like focusing on what a big deal of a race it is. And she had to sort of go back to like, it's just another bike race. It's just do what you had to do. I thought that was pretty interesting. Everyone's different.
I was just going to say that what jumps at me there is the individuality. And I think you and I are both fans of Finding Mastery, Dr. Michael Gervais, and that podcast. Yes. And that's a question he poses to many of the world's great performers and doers is it about the biggest race, the best competition, the ultimate stage, or is it just another one? And I think that's a powerful reflection and conversation to also have, and have done that work ahead of time. Heidi also showing awesome awareness of self to actually understand like, oh, like I'm talking to myself in this way. I'm like hyping myself up with this magnitude of competition. Whoa, this is not serving me right now. I'm going to fix this. So now and she changed it and she modified it. So like, that's the beauty of this race and this world-class competition is that they're, that level of competitor is also well-versed in that. And I loved getting that nugget of that quick reframe and that quick adjustment to how she was talking to herself and coaching herself.
It's a super good point because in a 3.5 hour stage, in however long it is, there are multiple, you're going to be talking to yourself the whole time. Like we said, the voice is always in your head, and there's so much conversation and so many opportunities. It's not like either you have a good mindset or a bad mindset for the day. It's a roller coaster ride where like Heidi, she noticed it, she made a shift, and then she probably had 15, 20, 1,000 other times during the stage where she had to make a shift and that conversation with herself. I love that you talk about Dr. Michael Gervais because he coaches a lot of folks who go to the Olympics, also a huge stage, and he really tries to help them realize they've trained for it. It literally isn't just another competition. And one strategy he uses to help people kind of stay within their skill set and all that is routine. And we talked a little bit about that as a strategy in episode 1 of just going back to, like you said, telling yourself you've done this before, you've got your morning routine, you've got your warm up, you've got your, you know how to ride a bike. Yeah. So I think that is, we're talking about mindset, but sometimes your behaviors really reinforce a mindset where you can be having that good conversation with yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. And our behaviors are also going to be coming out of those sort of like more fundamental conversations and reflections and that internal work of what's important to us. Those decisions that we make at any different guidepost along the way, those are those value guideposts. So yeah, whether it's in the race, in a warm up, ultimately this combination of attention aimed and values aligned. I think for me, it's a lot of it. A lot of it is held in those buckets. I think, yeah, looking at the feedback we got from the team, from the Saint Michel team, I think we have maybe a whole episode on routine because we have so much good, we have so many good pieces of their routine that are Tour de France Femmes specific pieces for preparation, recovery, debrief, reflection. So maybe we'll have to dial that up for another one of these days and do it the full pre-post run through because it's a lot. There's a lot of routine in there.
Yeah. The structure and the routine is important in creating the culture. So yeah, we will dive into that. We've got 9 stages to talk about this. If we just self-talk a little bit, the system 1 is automatic, system 2 is trained, and every day is an opportunity to train your mindset. Even if you're not on a bike, you're not racing the Tour de France Femme, noticing a negative mindset or noticing a distracted mindset or noticing just when you're kind of beating yourself up. Those are also ways to almost train even when you're not doing your sport is in everyday life. Do you use any practices like that where you're like,
I
come
mean,
on, Brent?
I think it's it's so humbling because I think it's another one of these examples of it's never going to be perfected. The finish line is never going to arrive.
Yeah.
Even though I know this, I understand it, I've studied it to some extent, it's so dang hard to implement and to also feel. It's one thing to say it, to know it. It's another thing to actually feel it and do it. And yeah, I mean, speaking of life outside the sport, like parenting, what a what a testament, what a test to that, staying positive in the self-talk because geez, it's always changing. It's always testing. It's like no matter how much you can give, the little kids can always take more. So it's
Yeah.
always a constant dynamic of like, oh, Brent, like, you know what? I didn't use great awareness and acceptance and re-aiming of my attention with the self-talk and self-coaching in a positive way because I just spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or a half a day in this sort of downward spiral of negativity with that system 1 little devil on my shoulder telling me, yeah, how rough it's going. So I say all this with humility and humbleness as someone that's very much on the journey and pursuit still myself for always and forever.
Well, we all are. And, it made me, while you were saying that, I'm like, okay, well, there's 2, the instructional and motivational. Like in parenting, is Brent, like, he probably has no instruction in parenting. You've never done this before.
Yes,
Um, yeah, I mean, I also think when you can't self-coach, that's the time to maybe lean on your teammates, your wife, when it comes to
absolutely.
parenting, or like, you know what? I'm really struggling here.
Yeah,
Can you help me with this? And for
yeah,
these Tour de France riders, it's going to be important for them to communicate with their teammates and their crew and their staff to be like, I'm really struggling mentally. Like, can I need a pep talk? I need a hug.
right.
So I do think it's
And which type
important.
do you
Yes,
need?
you need love. Like, come on. And some
Yes,
people might need a hug. And Dr. Alan Lim has talked about the nuance of the team meeting in the morning or the feedback that each rider needs to get is very different. So yes, we're self-coaching, we're self-talking, but we can't do it alone. So having the confidence and the vulnerability to raise your hand and say, hey, I could use a hug, or can we walk through that stage and can we talk about what went wrong today? And that would be instructional versus motivational. A hug is motivational. Talking through the stage is going to be instructional of like, what didn't go right today? And my mindset is sort of in the toilet. So I think it's important that we can talk to other people about it and admit that we're having a hard time.
Yeah,
There's so
it's
much like stoicism in athleticism. Did you like go to Cadell Evans and like give him a hug, and or in your team, like any really hard you guys did kind of were having a hard time and you sort of reframed your mindset as a team? Do you have any
yeah,
examples of that?
I think a depth of experience and a holistic knowledge of teammates and each other that shows through definitely on a one-on-one level. I think of it was actually the year Cadell won the tour. I crashed really bad. I think it was stage 9, maybe before the first rest day, and barely limped in for the time cut and was really battered up. Luckily, we had this rest day. Um, but on that rest day ride, despite everyone sort of just being like liberated and pinging that we're outside the race and getting to ride and take a load off, I was still like suffering, not feeling good because of this crash. And Cadell actually came back to me during that ride and like kind of went off the back of our little group with me and gave me some of that motivation, also instruction and encouragement, unsolicited from me. And I think that was realizing and reflecting how powerful it was to receive that also as a reminder for me of like, oh, I have a role and also getting myself what I need, like advising, coaching others of how to coach me and give me feedback, and wanting myself to open up and understand how my teammates and others work so I could be there for them in that way, and give that back to them too. So whether it's teammates, whether it's directors, I think having an active and a proactive role in that is an important part of progressing and also building that culture and fit with each other.
That's a really cool story. I love that he had the foresight to notice that in you and that you were able to receive that. I think that shows some emotional intelligence from both of you. Well, before we wrap this up, I want to talk a little bit about the stage today and just a couple cool things that happened and maybe get your take on them. So there was a really amazing breakaway that happened. Rihanna Marcus of Lidl Trek, and she ended up earning the most combative rider for it. And she was out front and she was just having the ride of her life and got caught literally about 500 meters from the finish. And it was just razor thin, so close to winning the stage, but she didn't win it. And the teams really had to work hard to get her back, which was pretty fantastic ride. But she didn't get the stage win. She was so close, like she could see it, and and she got caught. So what does that make you think about mindset for her tonight, for her team? Like, how does she not look at that as a loss?
So much emotion in there, and what a just gut wrenching, body wrenching effort. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is letting yourself feel all the feels. So it is such a polarizing experience. On one hand, there's teammates that are looking at you or fans that are like, what an inspired ride. That was incredible. You're so strong. You almost held off this entire peloton. Like, so empowering. Like, she's up there in the race, making it front and center, like making it happen, taking it to all these sprinters teams. And there's excitement and there's empowerment and optimism and enthusiasm in that. And then it just smacks right up against the like 500 meters away from a Tour de France stage win. Oh, like just this heartbreak. So I think allowing some time in the reflection process to feel all of it and to let it come and to notice it and to live in it and like let yourself actually get sloshed back and forth is good and okay. And part of it, the important part is like drawing a line and delineating when that part is done and reflecting on it a little more strategically of like, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? What was in my control? What wasn't in my control? How does this inform what I can do tomorrow and the next day? And how do I move on now? What's next? And you pack it up. And I love writing reflection for that reason, because you can literally close it and it's there. And at a later date, you can rip those pages, burn those pages, flush them, do whatever you want. But if you don't, and you do keep them there, they're always there to go back to. So I think this is another example of that post-race routine reflection will really shine through for an individual that's in a heightened point of the race and had a heightened role in the race like that. So yeah, Lidl Trek will be tested in that way this evening.
Oh yeah, and one of their directors, Ina Teutenberg, you might know her. She's an amazing writer, and yeah, wanting to text her, but yeah, what a fantastic ride, and yeah, journaling, it's a really good point. I've definitely written some really angry stuff in a journal or pissed off stuff about people. And I heard something interesting. I've heard it a couple times now, that an emotion to move through your body, it takes about 90 seconds. And then after that, if we can choose to hold on to it, or it's like literally on in 90 seconds, or you can like keep it and go back to it and ruminate on it. And so you actually have a choice to feel the emotion, like you said, like she wanted to win and she's probably really bummed. And then we choose, are we going to keep that for 90 days, 9 hours, or just let it move through you? Yeah, especially in a race like this, there's time to really fester. Yeah, tomorrow's new stage. All right. Do you have anything else to wrap up on self-talk before we close this episode?
No, I think that's good. I think we did a good crash course through it. I think
yeah, that was a great crash course. Thank you.
I love getting the anecdotes and insights from riders on the ground and in the race. And I think if I'm going to say anything else, it's just that this, like all of these concepts, it doesn't need to be, and it doesn't work best in a clinical, overly scientific. It's not about implementing any exacting routine very robotically, as evidenced even by these quotes and what's working for these riders that are trained and capable and belonging and deserve to be here. There's a lot of individuality. There's a lot of variation, and finding what works for us is as important as what any research says or we say, or any internet guru or scientist says. Yeah,
Right.
it's your talk. It's how you're speaking to yourself and how you're coaching yourself.
Well, and like you said at the beginning, I mean, we're going to be in relationship with ourselves our whole life. We're the one person we'll get to talk to our whole lives
No
in our
getting away
head.
from it.
So you might as well start having some good conversations in there. Well, I hope this was helpful for everyone. I hope you enjoyed our episode 2 of Miles and Mindset. And if you missed episode 1, go back to our YouTube channels on Rebecca Rush or Brent Bookwalter. And we will see you again for stage 3. And Brent, thank you so much for your expertise.
Thanks, Rebecca. Enjoyed it again. We'll do it again tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.